We all know muscles are important for us to be able to move. It helps us to do everything that we love, even talking. We rely on it to go about our day, so without it, we are just a bunch of skeletons, much like this one. Our muscles are composed of contractile tissue that contracts and relaxes to change its length and produce movement. There are 3 types of muscle tissues in our body, which are cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. We will be focusing on skeletal muscles, also known as striated voluntary muscles. Now let's look at muscles at a macroscopic view. We have over 600 skeletal muscles, in which 40% of it contributes to our weight. Compared to fat tissue, muscles use up to 3 times the energy even at rest. This is why people who regularly work out loses weight much faster than those who are sedentary. The skeletal muscles are attached to the bone by a fibrous connective tissue called tendon. As the tendon shortens, it contracts the muscle. As you can see, here is me flexing my arms. So how does the bicep and the tricep work together as an antagonistic pair to lift our forearm? It's actually pretty simple. As the bicep contracts, the tricep will relax to allow bending of the limb. The bicep then relaxes and the triceps contract in order to straighten the limb back to its original position. And did you know that our muscles are constantly contracting even at rest? This is called muscle tone. Even so, these contractions do not produce enough tension to perform a movement, but it's important for reflexes, posture, balance, and proper functioning of our organ systems.
I'll be sharing with you guys about microscopic anatomy and physiology. So this topic is about vertebrate skeletal muscles, which is composed of a number of muscle fibers that come in bundle. As you can see on the picture, we have sarcolemma, which is also known as plasma membrane, and we also have T-tubules, which is the yellow one that penetrate with cell but do not fuse with sarcoplasmic reticulum. So for sarcoplasmic reticulum, it consists of expanded portion which act as storage for calcium ion, which is very essential for muscle contraction. In sarcolemma, we can also find myofibril that come in cylindrical. It is also contain light and dark band. They are responsible for skeletal muscle striated appearance that we can see under light microscope. It's also composed of 2 types of protein, which is the thick one made up from myosin and the thin one made up from actin. Next, I'll explain about muscle innervation. So the whole region is called as neuromuscular junction. First, the muscles are stimulated to contract by the motor nerve fiber that have several branches ending in axon terminal. They also have a small gap called synaptic cleft that separate the axon terminal from the sarcolemma. At the axon terminal, we can have synaptic vesicle that fill with neurotransmitter acetylcholine or ACH. When the nerve impulse traveling to the axon terminal, the synaptic vesicle will release ACH into the synaptic cleft and bind to the receptor in sarcolemma. Then sarcolemma will generate impulse that spread over sarcolemma down to sarcoplasmic reticulum, and it will cause the filament in sarcomere to slide past one another. Sarcomere contraction will result in myofibril contraction, which in turn result in muscle fiber and also muscle contraction.
Do you know how to play the tug of war game? Well, this game just needs your hands to grasp the rope, pull, attack farther down the rope, and pull it again if you want to win. Actually, I don't want to tell you about how to play the tug of war game. Our skeletal muscle fiber functioning just like this game. A muscle contains bundles of muscle fiber, and a muscle fiber has many myofibrils that divided into sarcomeres, which are contractile. In this sarcomere, we have lots of actin and myosin. Both of these filaments work together to move our muscle during contraction. The movement of actin filaments in relation to myosin filaments is called as sliding filaments model of muscle contraction. When our muscle contracted, the sarcomeres will be shortened. The actin filaments slide past the myosin and approach one another. This causes the eye band to shorten and hash zone to nearly or completely disappear. Why did I say that? This model just like playing the tug of war game. The myosin heads are like your hands, grasping, pulling, letting go, and then repeating the process. The first step in muscle contraction is producing ATP. ATP provides the energy for muscle contraction. Although muscle cells contains myoglobin, which is a molecule that stores oxygen, cellular respiration does not immediately supply all the ATP that is needed. During strenuous activity, if there is not enough oxygen, our muscle will go to the second way, which is fermentation. It can only supply ATP for a short time, and lactate will build up. This lactic acid is bad for our body, as it can cause muscle ache and fatigue. To protect our muscle, rapid breathing can complete the metabolism and restart cells to their energy state. Fermentation, aka anaerobic process, will turn back to the aerobic process when our muscle get enough oxygen. A person who is regularly exercise, the mitochondria increases and muscle rely on them more rather than on fermentation to produce ATP. Less lactate is produced and there will be less oxygen depth. Say bye-bye to muscle ache.
I will continue this video by telling you guys about the role of calcium in muscle. So basically, the calcium play a big role to start the muscle contractions. So as we know, all the muscle do not work all the time, except the cardiac muscle work all the time without getting tired. And all others muscle need a relaxation time and only work when they are needed. For muscle to be in relaxation time, the trypomyosin should be present on the actin filament. When the trypomyosin present, it can block the binding site on actin so that the myosin cannot attach to the actin filament. So when the myosin cannot attach, it will stay in ADP and phosphate. So, when the muscle need to be contract, the sarcoplasmic reticulum will release the ion calcium, and ion calcium will bind to the troponin on the actin filament. When the ion calcium and troponin attach together, they will remove the tropomyosin on the actin filament. Actually, the tropomyosin and troponin are come together and line on the actin filaments. Myosin and actin filament can attach together. But before they attach together, the ATP should be hydrolyzed to produce ADP and phosphate. And this ADP and phosphate will bind to the meiosis head as the meiosis head attached to the actin filament. And when this ADP and phosphate are released, it can cause the actin filament to move. When the another ATP bind to myosin head, and the myosin head will back to the normal, and this cycle will rotate again and again.
Soalan yang pertama, pada pendapat Kak Hawa, kenapa kekuatan otot itu amat penting terutamanya dalam bidang sukan?
Kalau kita bersukan, kita banyak gunakan otot-otot yang besar. Bila kita buat macam kita lakukan aktiviti yang lebih daripada kemampuan kita, dia dapat membantu kita punya otot tu daripada risiko berlaku kecederaan.
Okay, untuk soalan seterusnya, apakah diet yang biasa diambil sebelum menyertai sebarang kejohanan?
Kami yang peringkat yang sederhana ni, bukan peringkat yang tinggi macam player-player Malaysia tu kan. Biasanya ambil makanan yang seimbang, sebabnya bila kita training berat, kita banyak ambil protein dan karbohidrat untuk kita tukarkan balik dia kepada tenaga lah. Ada pun makanan diet yang spesifik tak ada, cumanya makanan yang seimbang. Kafein tu sangat kita tak boleh ambil. Kalau kita nak tournament, tambah-tambah dalam 2-3 hari untuk tournament tu memang tak boleh ambil langsung. Sebab kafein ni dia boleh membuatkan kita cepat cramp, dia cepat dehidrasi.
Okey, soalan seterusnya saya nak tanya, kenapa pemanasan badan dan penyejukan badan adalah penting sebelum dan selepas melakukan aktiviti sukan?
Warm up ni kan dia fasa paling awal kan sebelum kita jalankan aktiviti lah. Meningkatkan oksigen dalam otot kita. So bila oksigen tu cukup, otot pun tak akan jadi kejang. Itulah sebabnya memang mana coach akan terapkan warm up ni sangat penting. Kita bukanlah elak, kita kurangkan. Sebab kecederaan ni memang akan berlaku. Tapi dengan warm up ni kita boleh kurangkan.
Okey, terima kasih untuk soalan seterusnya yang berkaitan dengan energy drink. Jadi, pada pendapat anda, adakah energy drink ini berkesan untuk meningkatkan prestasi para atlet semasa melakukan aktiviti sukan?
Energy drink dengan sport drink ni dia berbeza, benda yang berbeza. Dia tak beri kesan pun dekat kita punya badan untuk gantikan cecair dalam badan kita ni. Daripada minum energy drink, baik minum air masak, air mineral. Manakala sport drink ni, itu dia boleh menggantikan air dalam badan kita. Namun begitu, tak ada kajian yang mengatakan bahawa sport drink ni bagi kesan kepada prestasi individu tu. Better kita minum air masak. Air mineral tu lagi bagus menggantikan kita punya elektrolit yang hilang dalam badan kita.
Okay. Terima kasih Kak Hawa atas jawapan yang diberikan. Okay, kita dah habis sesi kita untuk hari ini. Terima kasih.